Is it working now?
Better.
Maybe a little higher. Now? As he said, my name is Michael Verson. I'm a land planner, landscape architect. And Bob has laid out a good view, I think, of the goals, objectives, the vision of what we'd like to see to develop the community and enrich it. They asked me to take a look and see what I can do to assist. And the scope of my work was essentially to gather information that was available at the time, to take a look at the properties, the site, the resources, and any considerations we have with the property, to help input into the program and to develop some concepts. And actually the scope of my work was called First Draft Concept, and that's exactly what it is. The idea was to put together some images, schematic in form, so that the community can take a look at and input into it. And we work with the Strategic Planning Committee. We work with the shareholders of the various properties, Wyndham, Westminster Church, and the mall, and of course Fairfield Glade. And getting some input, we put together these schematics. So what I'm going to show you is get you a little view of what areas we were dealing with, and then these schematic diagrams of how they evolved and where they are. The next step will be for the committee to put them out into the community to get input, and then you start refining these concepts. I may be blocking a few of you. Just tell me and I'll duck whenever I can. These first drawings you see up here, the one on the left, is essentially the overall land use that's existing out here. It's what's owned in this town center concept. The light green area belongs to Fairfield Glade. It's right over here. The lavender is Wyndham. The blue is Westminster Church, and the rose color is Village Green. Of course, you see it, to get you oriented, along the bottom is the Peavine, and then Stonehenge runs right up through the center. The first thing we did was say, how is the property being used as it is now? And I'm going to walk you through the property, and we'll see some of the existing uses, and you can get a better view of it. As you enter from Peavine onto Stonehenge, on the left, you have the park area, which essentially has parking in it, some trees, nice lawn area. It's a highly used area. A little higher in Wilshire Heights is the existing racquetball center, and then plans are actually underway for the pickleball above it, and then there's some additional green space. If you cross the street, you're where we are now at the Conference and Community Center for Fairview, and you see the area with this community center. Again, with the green, you see Wyndham's properties, primarily open space. The orange lines show pedestrian circulation, walking trails, both along Stonehenge and through the property between Lake Sterling and Mirror Lake. Village Green is in the rose color. You see the parking and the structure itself. Westminster Church in the blue, and then the Wyndham Sales section below. Right by Mirror Lake, to the left of it, is the area where we have the bandstand that's presently brought out. So we took an assessment and said, this is what we have. We've got some input into program, knowing that there's going to be a lot more activities that are going to be brought into what happens, but we're trying to give these diagrams so people can start evaluating. It's like you can wave your arms around as much as you can, but it's not a visual picture for people to comment on. So think of what we're putting up here as something you could throw tomatoes on, but don't start today. I'm going to show you some things that we have in common on the property. Let me see what I've got. Can people see that little red dot? Okay. Down here in the corner, as we entering in this area here, we have the event lawn area. And there is some existing parking. What we want to do is to make that, it's a great amenity. Open space, it's one of those things that for a nickel's worth of development, you get $1 worth of value out of it. And this is what, it's already being used now. It's a meeting place for different groups to start on hikes. You have the market center and so on. But we want to enhance that. And one of the things that would be nice that we could do into that is to create some facilities there. One could be a pavilion that could be used for multi-purposes. So maybe we can get more people to come up and give political speeches and run for the board. And maybe even have some things in there as far as restroom facilities. In the big picture, coming up the road in here, there's plans to develop a traffic light right at the intersection. We want to do some things, I'm going to talk a little bit just about automobile circulation, of trying to get an easier access and a safer access into the various parts of the site. One is to realign parking and access with the Wyndham Sales and the event green area across. Another idea is to make it easier for people to go in and out of these areas. One concept is a roundabout. All of you are familiar with it. Some people like them, other people hate them. But what that does, it allows traffic, it slows down traffic, making it safer, and allows people to flow in and out a little easier. And that was the concept to develop in through here that would allow access into both sides of the property. As we go up and develop the property, there would be some more access points allowing entrance into the various areas. One of the first things that we'll talk about is the area right in front with Wyndham Sales. Of course, they've got a great facility there. It serves the community needs as well. We'd like to do something to really designate the entrance into our town center with some type of an entry sign monument. Right in this area is where the bandstand is set up. It's not a great area because you've got the conflicting use of the Peavine Road, and then you've got parking behind it. And so we said, where else could this occur and become an enhancement? And we developed the area right behind the Wyndham Sales. There's a big lawn area right by Mirror Lake, and it tapers down to the lake. There's an opportunity to develop a natural amphitheater area. It would require some regrading, which isn't that expensive, but within that area we could develop a bandstand area, a stage area, which would do two things. One, it could be a really nice upgrade for events that you have there, music, plays, and so on. People can sit along the slope. It's easily accessible from the parking through here. We may even have restroom facilities tied into it. And when it's not in use, people could use it for our trail system. It becomes a central hub that people can come into and actually go out and sit by the lake, bring a picnic basket and sit out. So that was one of the concepts that we had developed. Several of these concepts that I mentioned are going to be repeated through, and I'll show you what the differences are as the schemes evolve. The other is Wyndham has an area where the old lodge used to be over here. Of course, that's Wyndham is going to be evaluating for their own uses and so on what the group, along with Wyndham, was saying, what could be possibilities. One is to develop into more residential use, either in timeshares or mixed use with either some type of additional retail or out parcel type retail office type space right in through here, and that was one of the concepts. The existing Westminster Church occurs here. The church is thinking about whether that fits their overall planning needs. Of course, these are individual stakeholders, and as Fairfield community residents, you don't have control over that, but it's a good idea to put all these ideas into a hat and see which ones help each other. And this was one, is to take, if they had moved, what could we do with that, and maybe developing that site, either modifying the building or putting a new building, and that could become a key restaurant for the area. Easy in, easy out. There's some parking around it to be used. And that was a concept for this in here. The Village Green Mall presently sits right in this area here, and it has parking. They actually own land right out in front. This was a kind of an easy addition. Said, well, if you want to just do something, let's maybe push it out to the road. We can add more retail to get some more services in the community. In doing so, we could work with possibly Wyndham up here, which is this section, add parking, add access that would serve it, and on this part of the site have a mixed use, which could be retail below and hospitality above. That would also be a great benefit to our community convention center up here, where people here could be housed in this area if there was an event. They could have food and with the lodging and some other things involved. In all the schemes, one of the things we want to do is make this very pedestrian user-friendly and try to create spaces. Bob showed some good examples of some outdoor spaces how to develop. So these lines show how we could get people to move through the site, and along there you wouldn't see it, but within that there would be areas, little mini plazas, outdoor cafes, places you can go sit, meet people, and so on. And then it would tie into our major circulation through here. So this was a concept that was used, we call it just Scheme A. We put that before the Strategic Planning Committee, got some input. They said, okay, what else can we evolve it to? And we came to this scheme. This scheme, again, has many of the same elements that we like the placement of. The development concept of the event lawn park area, the recreation gets expanded. Above it up in here, we had some space that it could become more of Fairfield Glades business services. It may be a place for either security or administration or some kind of use. It's not quite sure what that would be, but there's a nice open space, but it's still a little bit out of the way of the town center. In this area, from the roundabout, you come into the retail restaurant, and what we did here is say, okay, instead of just considering the Village Green area as one, let's try to combine them so we can create that little more of that town center complex that you've seen, where there could be some additional space, more parking that would serve this whole area in here, and they would tie together, and we'd have circulation in and out, and maybe even create some more open spaces that could be set up for little venues of, again, outdoor dining, eating, a little concert, that type of thing. All these, we would like to try to get this town center also related to the open space so that we can get circulation around the back, do remodeling so people that were in this little architectural confines would also feel all the wooded open areas we have and have views out. This essentially is the modification to the first scheme. We came up and said, okay, what else can we do? And in this one, we just said, let's just go for everything, home run swing. This would be a complete remodeling of this area in here where we actually were able to bring limited cars into here with some parking, but have very wide promenades along the front of the building. You know, if you've traveled abroad, you've seen the way they use the spaces outside, many times because they have to, but it's because of the culture and that social environment. We really want to have that kind of thing where you can go in, pull up, I'm running into the cleaners, oh, while I'm there's Sally, I think I'll go have a cup of coffee with them, that type of thing. So we can create, by doing some architectural modifications, a really interesting town center environment, and that's what was shown in this particular scheme. The rest of the layouts tend to be pretty much the same concept. And as I said, this is as far as we have taken it. This was the first step in a master planning process. It tries to pull information together, pull some programming ideas, put together something so that the community can start evaluating. And that's where we are right now. I think we may have some questions, but we may want to hold off on.
Yeah, a couple more slides. Need to go back, Mike. Okay.
iPads.
There we go. There we go.
All right.
Okay, so what would be our involvement? First of all, as I mentioned, we'd like to do a survey of the members next year, get some input from y'all about what you'd like to see in a revitalized area. Even if we don't end up being involved in this at all, obviously some people at Village Green Mall may be interested in that, et cetera. So next, we want to try and find the right commercial developer that has done these little village centers before. So they really know what works, what doesn't work, the type of lodging that may be appropriate, the type of stores, et cetera, all with input from our residents as to what they'd like to see. That's their starting point, because obviously you're here. So you're a market for them right away. So again, the goal here is that our involvement is more of a coordinator, not the developer. We're not looking to spend a lot of money on this as a community club. We want to find a commercial developer to spend the money because they see the financial success of doing something like this. Now, we may want to consider a hotel feasibility study. Fairfield Bay, Arkansas, one of the original Fairfield communities, actually did a hotel feasibility study. They're much smaller than we are. They have about 250 timeshare units. They have a conference center like we do. It's been renovated, but it's not as nice as ours. So they looked at it and said, like we, one of our issues with doing conferences here is while you have a lot of timeshare units, they're booked a lot of the time. You can't get a block of rooms. So if we had a consistent block of rooms that we could get right next door to the conference center, that would make it a lot easier to do conference center business here. Fairfield Bay looked at that, and they hired a company that specializes in this, and they determined that it would be feasible, and in fact, they have a hotel being developed. I think they just announced it earlier this month. So they're going to have a hotel right next to their conference center. So definitely something we ought to look at. And again, that would be something that we're trying to find a hotel developer to come in and do this. We're not involved in it. We definitely want to consider our main restaurants, okay, between the conference center and the Village Green Mall. Mike, if you want to go back to the last slide. And if you look at that slide, in that area where you see number 5, it's that area between the existing Village Green Mall and the conference center. And that is land that is currently owned by Wyndham. In our long-range plan, we had talked about actually tearing down Druid Hills, okay, and this would be long-range after we pay off all of our debt, and then redoing another Druid Hills with a large restaurant, with golf, et cetera, at Druid Hills. Well, the more the strategic planning committee started looking at this village center concept, the more we said, is that really the right thing to do? Or should our main restaurant be here in the village center area? Again, center of the community, a lot going on with retail, et cetera, other restaurants. So maybe that's the better location. Additionally, if you're going to really promote this building as a conference center, you really need to have a better food and beverage outlet right next to the conference center. Right now, that kitchen is just a small catering kitchen. We get right down to it. So if we actually had our main restaurant in that location, we could better serve this conference center rather than having to truck food over from Legends anytime we do a large event here. We could have more synergy for this whole village center and probably do a lot better overall. Now again, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to own and operate that restaurant. We may find, in fact, talking to the GM at Fairfield Bay, he said, what happens is now that we've got this hotel coming in, there have been some large chain restaurants that have been talking to us about maybe having a chain restaurant there because they see that you've got a hotel, you've got a conference center. Okay, now maybe you have the demographics for a chain restaurant to be here. So that may be something that actually we don't own and operate, somebody else owns and operate. Okay, but it would be the main restaurant right in the center of the community. So that's something we're definitely going to explore versus having the main restaurant at Druid Hills. And that's something that we're going to look for y'all's input on as we do the survey. Would you rather see your main flagship restaurant? And I could even visualize 2 restaurants there. You have a central kitchen, and then you have one restaurant that has one theme, and coming out of the same kitchen, just 2 different lines in the kitchen, you have another restaurant with a totally different theme, okay? So it may be, think about Legends on one side, Stonehenge Grill on the other side. Not saying that's what it'd be, but you have 2 very different restaurants coming out of one kitchen, very efficient from a kitchen standpoint, and very efficient for everything, whether we're doing just a la carte dining or we're doing large events like Easter, Mother's Day, Thanksgiving. You could really use both those restaurants for that large event without having two large restaurants. That's one of our issues with Legends, quite honestly. That dining area is really too large for day-to-day operations. It's great for large events, but too large for day-to-day operations. Okay, Mike, so again, that's an area that we want to really look at and get input from y'all. And as Mike indicated, we've already been talking with Village Green Mall, with the church, and obviously their initial reaction is, yeah, they like what they see. Obviously, the devil's in the details. They want to see more, and they definitely want to be part of the process, and they appreciated being part of the process to begin with. And we will continue, all the stakeholders, Wyndham, the community club, Village Green Mall, and the church will all be part of this process so that we can hopefully end up with a great village center that's really going to be a great experience for y'all as residents, and also attract more businesses and more new restaurants so we can grow. Okay, Mike. Why don't you keep that up there, Mike? And then that last slide, yeah, in case you have questions. Now it's question and answer time. So again, if you just go to the microphones.
Morning.
Need to go to the microphone, please. Oh, okay.
My name is
Mike,
Bernard.
get Mike.